Sorry, I started that while I was drinking coffee. This is the fourth part of the introduction to FM synthesis. We're going to be looking at decay and sustain level, which are a couple of the functions we haven't touched yet. I will get to those in just a second. First of all, I just want to take another quick look at the basic envelope stuff that we've learned so far. I've got a quick sound here, which is a nice, simple little bass sound. And you can see it's got a very simple envelope shape. It gets the maximum volume instantly, and it decreases pretty quickly. One of the keys about FM synthesis is getting the envelope for your sound correct. So getting the shape of the sound of your envelope correct. So if we look here, we've got a instant maximum volume, kind of pretty quick. Getting back to silence pretty quickly. And we pretty much know how to do that. So again, have a look at just this bottom carrier. This is number 4. So we've already got our attack rate, which is the time to get to the maximum volume, set at 31, which is the maximum, so it's instant. And our sustain rate is at 11, so this is getting quiet fairly quickly. Let's listen to it. Let's compare the two. That's maybe a little faster, so let's speed that up a bit. So we've got a pretty similar overall envelope for the output here. Let's have a look at an instrument that's got a different shaped envelope. Let's have a look at a flute. Oh, which is already playing for me. Let's play that. So don't worry about this part of it yet, but you can see the flute kind of gets louder fairly slowly, and then continues until we take our finger off the key. And we know how to do that too, which is great. So we want the sound to continue forever. And the way that we do that is we set our sustain rate at 0. So you can see here it's continuing forever. That starts a bit too fast to be a flute, so let's take our kind of time to maximum volume, or our attack rate, down a little bit. You can see a yellow line here. Don't worry about that, I'll get to that later. So let's try that. Let's compare the two. Right, so that's too slow. We want to get there faster than that. Too slow. Yeah, so very different sound. But it's doing something fairly similar in terms of how the overall volume's working. Let's have a look at a piano. I do have a piano in here somewhere. Yeah, this takes a couple of seconds to load. So the piano, it's kind of different on the grounds that the beginning part reaches the volume. Let's go and have a closer look here. So it reaches its maximum volume for all intents and purposes instantly, and then it gets fairly quiet quite quickly. So this bit of the sound gets fairly quiet quite quickly, and then it takes a long time to disappear. You might not be able to hear that too well on your speakers, but if you look up here at the top, it takes quite a long time to vanish. So look at the top again. So the maximum volume's here, and it gets quite quiet quite fast, and then takes a long time to disappear completely. At the moment, we don't really have the flexibility with our envelope to do that. Let's try and get as close as we can. So that's reaching maximum volume instantly. Let's drop our sustain. So we can do kind of getting quiet very slowly or very quickly, but we can't mix both, which is what we want to do for a piano type sound. Let's have a quick look at what we've got so far. We've got total level, which is the maximum volume that a sound reaches. Okay. We've got an attack rate, which is how fast we get to that total level. maximum volume, and we've got our sustain rate, which is how fast we get to silence. Now, I have a confession to make. I lied. This is not actually correct. There's an extra step involved. We have another level, which, depending on your synthesizer, can be called different things, but it's called SL, or sustain level. And this is an arbitrary volume after the maximum volume. So let's have a quick look at that. So this is it, SL. And at the moment, you can see that the SL is at 0, which is maximum. Let's bring it down a bit. So let's exaggerate it just a little bit. So let's play that one more time. Gets quiet kind of slowly. Let's bring this down, and you should see the angle of that line change. Let's exaggerate it just a little bit more. So you can see here what we're doing is we're going to our total level at speed 31, so this is instant, and then we're immediately dropping to our sustain level, and then we're going to silence at our sustain rate. If we slow down the attack rate, it's a little easier to see. Ooh, sorry. So yeah, what we've got here is we're reaching our maximum volume kind of slowly, then we're immediately dropping to our sustain level, and then we're going to slowly go to silence. So let's play that. Let's increase the sustain level just a little bit. Again, we've got a yellow line, don't worry about that. One more time. Getting louder, big drop, down to nothing. This is really, really great because it gives us a little bit more control. So let's go and update our definition here. Sustain level is how fast to silence, sorry, sustain rate is how fast to silence from SL. Very, very specific here. So we've got kind of four different points that are involved in our envelope. We've got the start sound, which is 0. We've got the TL, which is the maximum volume we reach. We've got this kind of arbitrary third point that we reach, and then we've got silence. So you can imagine a program when you're pressing a key. It says, okay, I start at 0. How fast do I get to the maximum level? Okay, kind of slowly in this case. Okay, I've reached the maximum level. What do I do now? Okay, I drop to my sustain level. Okay, how fast do I do that? Instantly. Or very close to instantly. And how fast do I get quiet? Oh, kind of slowly. So let's play that once more. You can see that happening. However, if we go back to our piano, that's not quite what we want to be doing. Because the piano starts loud, gets fairly quiet. Sorry. Starts loud, gets fairly quiet. Go away, I don't want to do that. So it starts loud, gets fairly quiet, and then disappears very slowly. So what we want to do is we want to change the angle that we get to this sustain level at. And the way that we do that is changing the decay rate. So let's get to instant. You should hear a pop and then a slow fade. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to get quiet. So we're going to drop the sustain level. So we want this. So this fade out part, we've got the fade out part, but what we want now is we want a little bit of extra sound at the beginning. If we drop our decay rate from instant to slower, you should see it open up. And let's just exaggerate that a little bit. So now we've got instantly go to the maximum volume, kind of quickly go to our sustain level, and then from our sustain level, slowly go to silence. So let's play that. Not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. Pretty close to our piano, which is rock and roll. So we've got a decay rate. Let's add a definition for that. How fast to get to the sustain level is also 0 to 31. Sustain level is kind of an arbitrary second level. And that, again, it's 127 being minimum, 0 being maximum. Just a quick point, if the sustain level is 0 and the total level is also 0, then the decay rate has no effect because you're already at the sustain level, if that makes sense. So when you imagine our kind of program running when we press the key, it says, okay, how fast do I get to my maximum level? Oh, very fast. How fast do I get to my sustain level? Oh, I'm already at my sustain level because it's 0. So I don't need to take any notice of this. How fast do I get to silence? Kind of quickly. Okay? If we decrease the sustain level, then this factor becomes important. So just a useful little rule of thumb, if the sustain level is 0, decay rate has no effect. Okay, so let's make an extra little note. Kind of useful to remember. So, oh sorry, I've got my attack rate in the wrong place. Let's move the attack rate up. Okay, so let's try just a couple of other little bits and pieces. Okay, let's say, for example, we want just to get like a kind of very quick beep sound. So we don't want one that so this one has a kind of instant, it's sort of a triangle shape to get back to the silence. Let's imagine we want something a little bit more square. So let's turn our decay rate down a little bit. Let's turn our sustain level up a little. Okay. Now, we've already learned that 0 means basically horizontal at any point. So if you've got a 0 anywhere in your envelope, then from that point on you're horizontal. So if 0 is decay rate, sorry, if 0 is attack rate, it means never reach maximum level, which is effectively silence. Let's just turn it off for a second. If your sustain rate, if your sustain rate is 0, it means never become silent. So that's kind of useful to remember. And again, with your decay rate, if your decay rate is 0, it means never reach the sustain level. So this will have no effect. Okay, kind of useful to remember. So let's try having a quick look at our hi-hat sound that we made and see if we can get that kind of slow tail off. So we want our feedback at 7. We don't want to be here, we want to be here. So yeah, we've got our hi-hat sound. Now, let's drop our sustain level a little bit. And let's drop the decay rate. It's maybe a little bit too slow. Okay, so what we want to do now is slow down the sustain rate. So what you imagine will happen here is we'll hear the initial hit, and then it will never reach silence. I don't know if you can hear it, but that little hiss will just continue forever. So we want that little hiss to finish pretty fast, but not quite as fast as the original sound. A little bit too slow. It's probably a little difficult to hear here, but because we've now got the extra arbitrary point, because we've now got this extra arbitrary point, we can add like an extra dimension to our envelopes to get much closer to real sounds. The last thing that I would point out, the sustain level and the decay rate work kind of in tandem. And it's very important to remember that the sustain level is defined by the angle of the decay rate. Okay, so the sustain level is defined by the angle of the decay rate. So if we move this decay rate down, the level isn't actually changing. It's still at sustain level 11. That point will never move. If you change the sustain level, what will happen is the level won't increase vertically, it'll increase kind of diagonally up and left because it's traveling up the angle of the decay rate. Okay? So it's just kind of useful to remember that point. That's pretty much the end of what we're going to learn for this session. Sorry it was kind of a long one, but the decay rate and the sustain level are kind of important to get down and make sure we understand. Thank you very much for listening, and please email me any questions or anything like that, or comment me any questions, sorry. Thank you very much.